In April 2019, the body of a young British woman is found in a hotel in Switzerland.
Anna Reid was going away on this round-the-world trip.
Her father, as a treat for her for her 21st birthday, paid for her and gave her the finances.
For her, this was an adventure. Before going off to university, travelling to the United Arab Emirates,
Vietnam, Singapore,
Berlin and Germany, and eventually the Swiss Alps.
They go to a resort on Lake Maggiore,
staying at the extravagant Palma au Lac.
Olive groves, fig trees. If you were shooting a Garden of Eden on film, you may well have said it there.
On April 9th, guests in the neighbouring hotel rooms hear a dispute coming from the junior suite.
There was a violent argument taking place.
People suggested that things like, "You're killing me" or "You're kidding me" was being said.
They then hear screams, followed by a disturbing, eerie silence.
Paramedics were called,
and the medics find Anna Reid dead in the hotel room.
The cause of death was asphyxiation and strangulation.
They found her in a bath of warm water to try and disguise the time of the death.
So what really happened in this luxury paradise on that fateful night? Lake Maggiore, Switzerland. On the 9th of April 2019, the body of a young female is discovered in Hotel La Palma au Lac in Locarno, Switzerland. She is identified as Anna Reid from England.
Anna Reid was a 22-year-old heiress from Harrogate in North Yorkshire. Her family owned a successful stud farm.
Guy Reid, her great uncle, had been pretty much a sort of self-made man. He had a transport business, he had an agriculture business, but his big love was horse racing, and he created a breeding operation there. Horses that were bred from that stable, that yard, were successful way beyond just the Reid's family ownership.
Anna had a sister called Millie, and together they attended the prestigious Asheville College, which cost around £10,000 per year.
Anna was widely perceived as a really nice girl, a kind girl, decent girl, hard-working girl. Even though she had fabulous wealth, out of the reach of most people, she had a job part-time in a restaurant, she babysat, she wanted to be a ski instructor, she'd already done 1 degree, and she was working hard to then go and do a maths qualification.
She had a lot of friends, she was interested in sports, she was interested in socialising and having fun.
Sadly, Anna's family had already experienced a great tragedy.
When she was 17, her life came crashing down when she lost her dear mother, Mary, at 49 years of age.
Her mum was coming to visit her in her new flat. At the end of that visit, she fell down the steps and had an aneurysm.
Anna was absolutely devastated.
That kind of bereavement in that sort of circumstance where someone will inevitably be feeling some degree of responsibility is going to have an impact. So it's not just the bereavement, but also that sense of, was there anything that could have been done differently?
And it's fair to say, and according to friends of Anna as well, that she went off the rails at that time. It was a very difficult time in her life.
When you suffer trauma, such as a loss of your mum, especially when it's so sudden, at an impressionable age, age 17, it will have an impact. And someone being described as going off the rails, actually to me is someone who needs some support, some treatment, and to be able to look at the trauma and really work with their feelings, because it really does affect you and your thought process and shakes up your whole life.
Her father, as a treat for her for her 21st birthday, a really significant birthday for her, paid for her and gave her the finances to go around the world for a year, travelling, going where she wanted to go.
Going away on this round-the-world trip for her 21st birthday was no doubt a treat for herself, but also a way of going out and enjoying life after a horrible, awful, sudden bereavement.
It was meant to be that summer was her last summer of freedom before she came down to reality and went back to the UK to resume her studies.
It is when Anna is travelling in Thailand that she meets her travel companion.
Anna's doing what many 21-year-olds do. She's going around the world, she's having one-off experiences, incredible memories, and she encounters Mark Schatzel. If you had to describe an individual that was more at odds with Anna's life, it's Mark Schatzel.
Mark Schatzel was 32 years of age. He was 10 years older than Anna. He was from southwest Germany. He had a past.
He was £40,000 in debt or thereabouts because of a failed company that he had owned.
Would dabble in drugs, would outspend his finances on designer goods.
He had a conviction for theft, he had drug rehab problems, he had issues with alcohol, he owed money all over town.
He had lapses in memory because of cocaine use.
And he had 2 children from a previous relationship for which he owed significant sums in child maintenance.
Mark Schatzel cut quite a thuggish figure.
He was a heavily tattooed man, a bodybuilder, and an ex-security doorman.
Quite aggressive looking tattoos. This was somebody who had warrior tattooed over his eyebrow. He had an upside down crucifix tattooed on his face, which projected a view of sort of anti-Christian, anti-good values.
The worrying ones were the ones that were initials FTW, the world, ACAB, all cops are bastards.
His social media handle was Mark Dirtywhite, Dirtywhite being the street slang for raw cocaine. It was also the name of a white supremacist group.
The Dirty White Boys are a white supremacist group within Germany. Why has he got these tattoos? Why is he calling himself this and affiliated to these groups? So, quite a concerning individual.
Previously, he had an assault conviction where him as a significantly bigger man had an encounter where a 17-year-old had bumped into him on a night out. The 17-year-old had apologised to him and gone to walk away. This was not enough for Schatzel. He lost his temper, and even though Schatzel's friends tried to hold him back, he chased down this 17-year-old, spat in his face and assaulted him. He was given a 8-month suspended sentence for this.
Clearly he was not the type of partner that Anna's family would have envisioned her being with. Someone like Anna, a wealthy heiress, younger than him, was a perfect target for financial greed.
Mark Schatzel was the complete opposite of Anna in every sense, both in behaviour, appearance, physical characteristics, and also his criminal history. Anna came from a wonderful background, privately educated, she could ski, she rode horses, she was kind, decent, hard-working, multiple qualifications. Mark Schatzel was a nightclub bouncer, 10 years older than Anna. He worked manning the doors in different pubs, but also he wasn't just physically significantly bigger than Anna, he had significantly worse character traits than Anna.
Schatzel was actually really deceitful, and although he had got some money from a personal injury claim, which probably allowed him to dress in designer clothing and therefore made him validating for Anna, he didn't pay maintenance for his children, and that type of man, we know when they've got a history of convictions, and they're controlling and domestic abusers, they generally won't care about their children, and they might even use their children to try and get back at their ex and control their ex.
But Anna, having met Schatzel while travelling, would have known very little about his background.
When the friends looked at him, they couldn't see them together, but Anna saw something in him that she liked, and they started a relationship.
Unfortunately, it wouldn't take long for Schatzel to show his true colours, having deadly consequences for Anna. In April 2019, the body of 22-year-old Anna Reid is found in the hotel La Palma au Lac in Locarno, Switzerland. The British heiress had been on an around-the-world trip her father gifted her for her 21st birthday.
She started this relationship with him. When the friends looked at him, they couldn't see them together, but Anna saw something in him that she liked, and they started a relationship.
They had what we call a whirlwind relationship.
There was a bit of an age gap between them, I think around 10 years age gap, which is not that uncommon and not necessarily anything to be concerned about, but does give sometimes a dynamic of an older person having a bit more ability to take control.
Anna arriving in his life in Thailand was a golden ticket to enjoy a life that was way beyond his means. He immediately took advantage of that. Whilst he was charming and Anna clearly had feelings for him, he very much had feelings for her wealth. Her spending went extravagantly upwards to £10,000 a month, and a lot of that was being spent on Schatzel. It was fine dining,
bottles of champagne, drugs and alcohol, funding this lavish lifestyle that they were both indulging very heavily in.
It was clothes, it was things that Mark Schatzel could demonstrate he was suddenly rolling in money.
She was covering travel, accommodation, meals, all expenses, and that is one element of coercive control.
This man portrayed a completely different image to Anna. He told her that he was a successful company director, which wasn't true. He would have portrayed this image of success to Anna, who, remember, was 10 years younger than him. So he was wanting to impress this young woman to bring her under his spell.
I think he paid about €43 or something like that in those 3 months where she paid 50,000. You're seeing a massive imbalance in terms of finances, and that greedy, narcissistic person who Schatzel was playing on her vulnerability and her kindness and her joie de vivre.
Over a 3-month period, they travelled together.
They spent time travelling to the United Arab Emirates,
Vietnam, Singapore,
Berlin and Germany, and eventually they ended up in the Swiss Alps.
This really quick relationship would have been a red flag to someone who works in domestic abuse. Quick relationships that are very, very hurried are worrying, especially when you have this massive age gap between her and him, and polar opposite in terms of their backgrounds.
You couldn't have presented two more opposite characters to be in a relationship with each other. Anna was privately educated, slightly built, 22 years old, and Schatzel was the complete opposite. He was physically imposing, he was 10 years older than her. Anna was travelling on her own. It was probably quite useful to her. You know, you're travelling around, you're able to suddenly feel free as a woman travelling around. You've got this physically imposing guy, dangerous looking guy next to you. And this was somebody that was very, very different to the people that she'd have met at Royal Ascot or a private school in Harrogate or at York Racecourse. This is somebody that stood out, and he made sure he stood out, and he made sure that he carried this threat of violence.
When your friends and family can't see directly what is happening, they can't see how you are as a relationship, as a couple, they only just get messages from you. You know, it's very difficult for those people to intervene, to see that actually Mark Schatzer was becoming this coercive and controlling person who doesn't have control of the finances, but is doing very, very well to get the money off her anyway.
Soon, the picture-perfect holiday romance comes crashing down.
Things become dark when they go to Switzerland.
They go to a resort on Lake Maggiore, staying at a quite expensive hotel.
They stay at the prestigious Hotel La Palma or Lac in the foothills of the Alps.
This is a lavish luxury hotel. It was 4 stars, and they had upgraded themselves by renting the junior suite, which was far larger and was the superior suite in that hotel. So essentially they had the best room.
It's a small 68-room luxurious hotel. They spent a lot of money on the junior suite, room 501 on the top floor.
It's stunningly beautiful. It's called Lake Maggiore, but it's really a sequence of beautiful individual lakes. There's private islands on there with fantastic restaurants, glorious terraces. Everything's in this fantastic Italian architecture, stunning local geography, olive groves, fig trees. If you were shooting a Garden of Eden on film, you may well have said it there. This is an astonishingly beautiful place.
It's at this hotel that Anna receives a concerning message.
An ex-girlfriend of Schatzer's, who had been subjected to his violence and his controlling behaviour and aggression, actually contacted Anna's ex-boyfriend and explained that he was a dangerous man. Anna's ex-boyfriend was able to tell Anna, "I've been told that this guy is a liar, manipulative, he's violent, he's an offender, he isn't what you think he is." He really wanted to safeguard Anna. Anna might have started thinking at that point, "Ooh, how am I going to extricate myself from this?"
Being so far away from family would mean that if there was issues in the relationship, it would be very hard for her. She would be in a very vulnerable position. She would not have anyone close by that she could talk to. She couldn't just get away from it very easily.
Anna had begun to recognise the dangers, and she had confided in friends and family that she was going to end the relationship.
Monday, 9th of April 2019 is when they went out to a restaurant. They travel there by charter boat.
They go out for a suitably expensive dinner, £100 bottle of champagne is ordered, and they retire back to the room.
They arrive back to the hotel at 2:30 a.m, whereby shortly afterwards, hotel guests hear a situation developing, a violent row between the two of them.
Lots of sound of arguments, things banging around.
Furniture being knocked over, items being moved around. This sounds aggressive, this sounds like a problem. A guest reports that they were going to intervene, but they were frightened because of the noise of the row. We hear through witnesses that Anna is overheard shouting, "You're kidding me." It sounds very much as if she'd uncovered a horrible truth. Something had been uncovered, whether it was something about his past, whether he'd been stealing money from her, whether he'd been spending money on her credit card. She was very, very unhappy.
Witnesses in the hotel who heard a commotion thought they could hear the word money being said. So it could have been that things had come to a head in terms of the financial side of their relationship.
There was something really, really violent happening within that room at the time. The actual phone socket itself was ripped from the wall. The ability to communicate with downstairs had been taken away from Anna with that phone being taken out of the wall.
2:30 in the morning, the guests are hearing this situation develop.
But these people were quite afraid to report it.
The more people see something, the less they feel like they have a duty to intervene or take responsibility. And that definitely plays an impact, even where it's not a direct bystander, so it's not somebody witnessing in the sense of seeing what's happening, but they're hearing what's happening. What other residents in the hotel have done is informed reception, which is quite understandable. And I would guess they would presume that the hotel then takes that responsibility of ensuring that this is nothing untoward. What reception have done is also assumed that somebody else holds that responsibility for their safety. We get the sense from how it's been talked about that the hotel guests who did report to reception did it in terms of the impact on them, rather than a sense of being concerned about the safety of Anna. Night porter goes up to the room to try and calm the situation down, clearly doesn't try and intervene, and it's not clear from the reports about who was spoken to at that moment that the night porter went up. Was it just Schatzel who was spoken to? Was Anna actually spoken to? Was Anna invited to come out of the room and have a conversation away from Schatzel? The reception intervention appears to have been around smoothing the waters for those other guests, not checking on the safety of Anna and checking what was going on.
Hotel staff return to their posts downstairs, but neighbouring guests hear the fighting coming from the room 501.
They then hear screams, followed by a disturbing, eerie silence.
Sometime after the shouting is heard, Mark Schatzel is heard crying loudly, but at that point nothing more seems to have happened.
4 hours later at 6:30 a.m, Mark Schatzel goes down to the hotel lobby.
Running into the reception and saying, Anna's not breathing, we need a paramedic, we need an ambulance.
Emergency services arrive on scene at Suite 501 at the hotel, where a deplorable sight awaits them behind the door. On April 9th, 2019, paramedics were called to a luxury suite at Hotel La Palma au Lac in Locarno, Switzerland, after reports of a guest in need of medical assistance. Mark Schatzel, a nightclub bouncer from Germany, alerted hotel staff that his girlfriend, 22-year-old British heiress Anna Reid, had stopped breathing.
At 6 o'clock in the morning, Mark Schatzel went down to reception of the hotel and reported that there was an issue with his partner.
Although Schatzel is playing the part of a partner gravely concerned for his girlfriend, suspicions begin arising for investigators.
They said he was frantic. They said he was worried. They said she needed medical attention to call emergency services. But it is worth noting that he was fully dressed. He had his socks and shoes on when he went down to report Anna being unwell.
He has taken the time to get dressed and to put on his shoes properly, so he's tied the laces, which to me does not suggest the actions of somebody who is panic-stricken.
First of all, hotel staff reported that Schatzel had somehow managed, in his frantic panic, to get up, put on all his clothes, including tying his lace-up shoes, getting the lift, walking out of the lift and coming down the stairs and asking for medical assistance. Imagine the love of your life is deceased next to you. You are going to get help. They are not breathing. Their tongue is sticking out. They are blue. You are stopping, putting on your clothes, tying your shoes, making sure you look good, and then getting the lift. Mark Schatzel is an athletic man. If your loved one is in distress, you are sprinting down those stairs. You are not pushing the button, waiting for the lift, tying your shoes, going down and seeking medical assistance.
But then he makes a shocking admission to paramedics.
Mark Schatzel denied murdering Anna Reid. He said that her death had occurred during a sex game gone wrong.
That the sex game had been initiated by Anna.
That he would cover up her mouth as they were having sexual intercourse, and that this was a form of erotic pleasure for her.
That she had asked for pressure to be applied around her throat.
A towel had been used around her neck.
He'd applied that pressure, and it was an accidental death resulting from that consensual sex and that consensual strangulation.
And he claims that she didn't give the signal that they had agreed upon to end what he claimed was erotic asphyxiation.
To be honest, whether consensual or not, she was dead, and he was not displaying anything that you would expect, apparently, at that time.
It's a relatively easy defence to make and a difficult defence to disprove.
This then is treated as a unexplained death or a murder inquiry at the time.
Law enforcement arrive on scene, and quickly Schatzler's excuse for Anna's death begins to crumble.
It was clear that there had been a physical intervention with things in the room. Given the verbal argument, given what was heard, and given the relative size of the two people, that it's more likely from the extent of the damage that it was Schatzler who had caused, if not all, but the majority of that damage.
Schatzler's demeanour quickly